just get yourself sat over there and we'll start. Oh, right, yes. Sit down, missy. Whoa. Hello. I can't keep in character for 2 seconds. So my name's John Hammond. You might be familiar with my character in this book novel right here. So for this Jurassic Park month, the Gaming Beaver invited me to introduce at least one video on this, the Jurassic Park novel. Some of you might be familiar with it, others not so much, reading these days and what kids like to do. In that novel, there's a character, Dennis Nedry. Now, a person who seems to only look out for themselves. Something I'm sure you don't do it, of course. Humor me if you may. This character decides to take a greed into his own hands, and you might be familiar with his death in the movie. But what you didn't know, or what you may not have known, is that in this novel, he has a completely different death. I wouldn't bore you with my dramatic theatrical impressions any longer. No, I've enlisted the help of one man also known as Klayton. He, of course, will be telling the story of how Dennis Nedry meets his untimely death. Some of you may be familiar with his most recent works, going through the lore of Jurassic Park, and he sheds light on characters and storylines that only feature in these magnificent novels, truly sparing no expense. And with that, my chef has prepared me a lovely plate of Chilean sea bass. Oh, that reminds me, and I've got to help a young lady through the security shed. Yes, Ellie? There should be a round green button that says push to close. Nope, you want to push the one next to it that says push to party. Yes, that's a very good button. You should definitely click that one, yes. Why would you want to click the other one? You might end up being jump scared by a raptor.
The sign said electrified fence, 10,000 volts, do not touch. But Nedry opened it with his bare hands. He made his way back to the Jeep and drove through the now open gate. Dennis was inside of the park, and only a mile or so from the East Dock. He was driving fast. A little bit too fast. But he had to keep to his timetable. If Dodson's boat wasn't waiting for him at the East Dock when Nedry got there, then this whole plan would be ruined. This damned storm could screw everything up. He'd been gone for a while now and needed to get back to the control room ASAP. The whole plan relied heavily on his ability to go unmissed. He was supposed to drive to the East Dock, drop off the embryos, and be back at control in just a few minutes before anyone noticed. It was a clever plan. Nedry had worked on it carefully. After all, this plan was supposed to make him 1.5 million. It had to be good. Yes, Nedry had worked everything out. He'd even told Dodson to meet him down at the San Francisco airport at the last minute, with the excuse being that he needed to see the money. Another clever plan. In actuality, Nedry had used that moment to record their conversation and mention Dodson's name on tape, just so this guy wouldn't forget that he still owed Nedry the rest of the money. He'd include this tape with the dinosaur embryos. Dennis had thought of absolutely everything, except this damned storm. Suddenly, something darted across the road in front of Nedry's Jeep. Looked like a rodent. Must have been a possum. Amazing little guys like that could actually survive out here. You'd think the dinosaurs would make a quick snack out of animals like that. Nedry paused, suddenly worried. Where was the dock? He should have been there by now. He was on the right track. Or was he? Nedry made a sharp turn and saw that the road ahead of him terminated with a 6-foot gray concrete barrier blocking his path. He slammed on the brakes and fishtailed, and just before his vehicle could collide with the wall, Nedry regained control of the car and stopped it just short of impact. He took a deep breath. He'd obviously taken a wrong turn. He could retrace his steps, but he'd already been gone too long. He'd better try to find out where the hell he was. Nedry got out of the car and felt the cold raindrops assault his head. He looked down at his watch. 6 minutes gone already. He walked around the corner until he heard the sound of water gurgling. He followed the sound until he saw the river. The jungle river. But at the river where, he thought. 7 minutes gone. You've got a problem, Dennis, he said aloud to himself. As if in reply, Nedry heard the soft hooting of a wild owl. He had to abandon this plan. He needed to just go back to control, restart the computer, and set up a meeting with Dodson in the future. He couldn't stay in the park any longer. His absence would absolutely go noticed. He started to make his way back to the Jeep, before he heard the same soft hooting cry from earlier. This time, it didn't sound like an owl. As he listened, He heard the sound of jungle crashing. Before that noise was followed by silence. It sounded like something big was making its way toward him from the underbrush. Something really big. Something near. A big dinosaur. He had to get out of there. He ran as fast as he could to the car and heard the animal crashing down against the foliage behind him in hot pursuit. Nedry was nearly there. He saw the light shining off of the barrier, and just when he made it out of the jungle, his body froze in fear. The animal was already there. It wasn't close, but it was there, just 40 feet away from the car. It looked odd. Nedry hadn't taken the tour, so he didn't know all of the different dinosaurs in the park. It had a 10-foot-tall yellow body with black spots and a weird red pair of V-shaped crests on its head. It wasn't attacking him. Maybe the headlights from his Jeep startled him. The dinosaur made its cry before snapping its head back in a swift motion. Then Nedry felt something smack wetly against his chest. He reached down to touch it and noticed that a foamy substance had covered his shirt. It had spit on him. It was creepy, he thought. Immediately, the dinosaur cocked its head back again, this time sending a blob of foam directly on his neck and shirt collar. He wiped it away instantly, and suddenly the skin of his neck began to tingle and burn. His fingers soon experienced the same sensation, almost like he'd been touching acid. Nedry opened the car door and turned back once more to make sure that the animal wouldn't attack, before feeling the excruciating pain of spikes stabbing through his eyes and penetrating the back of his skull. He squeezed his eyes shut and immediately raised his hands to wipe the foamy substance out of them. Spit! The dinosaur had just spit in his eyes. He collapsed, wheezing. The pain was unbearable. He felt his cheek touch the damp ground and began to see flashing spots behind his closed eyelids. The earth shook beneath him, and Nedry heard that alien cry. The soft hooting invited him to open his eyes and fight for his life. But even upon opening them, Nedry could see nothing. Nothing but flashing spots. Suddenly the realization came to him. He was blind. The hooting got louder, and Nedry messily rose to his feet and began to use the car's side panel for support. A wave of dizziness and nausea swept over him. He began to hear snorting, and outstretched his hands wildly in preparation for an imminent attack. And then there was a new, searing pain in Nedry's belly, like a fiery knife had cut its way deep in him. He blindly reached down at the ragged end of his shirt and felt a warm, thick, slippery mass slip through his fingertips. He began to realize that he was holding his own intestines in his hands. That dinosaur had torn him open, and his guts had fallen out. Nedry fell to the ground, his face landing on something scaly and cold. It was the dinosaur's foot. And then Nedry felt a new pain on both sides of his head. This pain grew worse as Nedry was lifted high off of his feet, the horrifying realization of his head being hoisted in the animal's jaws. This last understanding came with a final praying wish, that it would all be over soon.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Klayton. Spared no expense. And if you enjoyed this video, my amazing impression, and of course Klayton's video, don't forget to leave a like. Now I'm going to take off the beard and have a jolly good piss up. Yes! As I'm sure John Hammond would be prone to doing with the high intellectual types of his era. Oh, God. Okay. The doorbell just went. I saw him open the door and, hello! You know what the weirdest thing is? He didn't seem that bothered. Now we do a special unboxing. Let's see what this is. Is it Jurassic Park related? Our job is quite simple, really. Build a park, create dinosaurs, and entertain people. Oh, look! It's the Owen and motorcycle set. It hasn't been released here yet, or at least in England. The only thing is, for some strange reason, they... Oh no, oh hold on. Oh no, it's like a Beyblade. Oh, and Owen actually looks pretty cool. It definitely doesn't look like Chris Pratt, but the head sculpt is marvelous. Spared no expense.